Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Terence Barr, and it's a privilege here to talk today and share some of the wonderful things that Bear enriched my life with. I first met Bear when he came to Princeton in 1985. I was just a year ahead of him doing my PhD there, and I remember Bear showing up. They always took all the first year or incoming graduate students on a retreat so they could get to know each other. And Bear really stood out. I'm sure you can't imagine that, but he did. Not just physically, but he went around and knew everybody's name within a matter of a few minutes. And I remember him introducing himself, Bear McPhail. And I said, "Oh, Bear, what is Bear short for?" And he said, "Ursus horribilis." It took me several years to find out his name. His birth name was Derry, and I only knew his wife to call him that. I'm meeting several other people today that knew him otherwise, but he was always Bear to me. I keep thinking of phrases that really kind of catch my feeling of him. And the first is he was a real scholar and a gentleman. He came to Princeton to work in David Carrar's lab, to do a PhD under David Carrar. But he very soon became the heart and soul of the geochemistry group. David Carrar was very ill, and shortly after Bear arrived, in several of the more senior geochemistry PhDs finished, Bear was the one that was really left to, I say, raise the other younger PhDs in the geochemistry group. He had an incredible experience he brought with him from his days in BC, and he just had a way of taking everybody under his wing. I remember one of the things he really transformed was coffee time. The geochemistry group had this tradition for years of having coffee together every day. And until Bear came, it was just the geochemists that would. But his office was 2 floors below mine. Mine was just next to the stairwell. And I remember hearing Dan Rogers wafting up the stairwell. I only came out to find out later he liked to sing in the stairwell because the acoustics were so good, but it was like the Pied Piper calling me down. And I remember coming down and having coffee, and within a few months, most of the geophysicists were coming down, and then I think the geochronologists and other groups started coming down, and it became one of the lively centers for the department. Everybody would make sure to get in to start their day with the geochemist's coffee. And we'd talk about everything, but Bear, he liked to just use the Socrates method, Socratic method, ask people questions. I was a geophysicist. I didn't have much time for geochemistry at first. He soon straightened me out and showed me the silly error of my ways. I was doing some modeling of Taiwan, and he kept asking, "So what is that good for?" And I said, "Well, I can figure out this and that." "Well, what can you do with that?" Before long, he had me learning geochemistry, and one of my highlights of my time at Princeton was writing a paper together with Bear where he used geochemistry to guide all the geophysical modeling I did. And that was always the way. He was a teacher at every level. The other thing that always really stood out was he liked to have a lot of fun. It wasn't just about academics, though he certainly was a powerhouse there. The next phrase that comes to mind when thinking about Bear was, best and fairest. He liked sports. He played sports with a passion. But one of the things he always taught me was that you played hard, but you never lost sight of sportsmanship. And he started the geology hockey team there at Princeton. We didn't have one before. He tried to teach me to skate, and feel I did not succeed as several of the previous speakers did. I never did play hockey with Bear, but I did love getting out and skating with them. What I did play, though, was intramural softball and volleyball. We co-captained the geology team there for several years, and I still remember one time that sort of epitomized. We got out there and we played, and we liked to do our best. But this one game, Bear hit a nice infield line drive, which was unusual. He usually knocked the ball out of the park. In this particular case, he decided he was going to run and beat the throw at first base, and he had a full head of steam up, and I was surprised how fast he moved for his size, but he was a sprinter too. And there was a very small first baseman, very inexperienced, that decided they were going to step in the way to try to stop Bear. We all held our breath. We saw this collision coming, but in softball, I know some of the North Americans would know, but just for those down under, softball is not a contact sport as hockey is. And just before the collision, he decided to spare this poor first baseman and dove out of the way. He did a roll. We thought there must be a broken collarbone or dislocated shoulder or something. And when the dust settled, he stood up and sort of shook himself. I think he was sore for a while, but he wasn't going to run over another player. And it always stood out. I remember also another instance playing volleyball where we started to argue a call. It was a championship game. We started to argue a call, and he just sat us all down and read the riot act to us. It's like, you don't question the umpire. That's just not sportsmanlike. More than that, though, the thing that I really admired for Bear and what he shared with me was his family. I was a single grad student at Princeton. My immediate family at that time was living overseas, and I felt like I was a stray when it came to holidays, and the McPhail family adopted me. I felt like I spent many Canadian Thanksgivings and a couple Christmases with them. And I was welcomed in. I saw firsthand his love for his wife and his children. And that was something that, as the years continued, whenever we would talk on the phone, he would always give me a rundown, just glowing with pride at all of your achievements. I know, to reiterate what Jim Lee just said in the last talk, he was so proud of you, Maria, being licensed in 3 countries. And he was so proud of all you kids. I know, like, from when you were little, I would hear about all the little things each time. And as you grew up into such fine young people, you were his life. I feel like I take a lot of the inspiration I saw as a father, with my own children. And one other thing that he really shared, he showed up at my wedding. We had a very small family wedding. My wife and I, we got married quite late, and we were married just south of Kingston in upstate New York. He miraculously happened to be in Kingston visiting Jim Lee at Queen's University, and called me up the day before my wedding and said, "I'm getting married tomorrow, Bear." He says, "I'm coming down." And he was there. He stood up at the reception after a wedding and sang Stan Rogers' song, 45 Years, which is a real gift. It's my wife Marilyn and my song now. And I would just like to say, to Maria, to Christina, Christopher, Sean, and Joey, I love you all, and I'd like to just make a toast to Bear. You will be sorely missed, my friend. Cheers.
Cheers.